when somebody's having this own internal conversation, right, and you're not allowed to be in a part of it, they literally are concocting an entire narrative of what is going to happen. Not what happened, what is going to happen.
Like, I was in a recent situation where I would hear a person that I was dating say, I'm not ready for a relationship. I'm not ready for a relationship. In my head, I said, yet. You're not ready for a relationship yet. It's different when you gotta live it, yeah.
I want to touch on that, but I want to actually clarify for the audience. How old are you?
I'm 23 years old.
22. We're young. We're babies.
It's nothing wrong with that. It's just I want to make sure everybody understands. I want to touch back on what you said about boundaries, because you hit one of my buzzwords. I love boundaries. Mm-hmm. I think it's extremely appropriate to have boundaries, particularly when you're talking about, and again, we're kind of going out of order, but expectations.
Oh, right? Yes.
Because
this is fun.
If I have, right, yeah. If I communicate well, I would say, this is to me, that's the key part. If I communicate effectively what I want, particularly if I do it right off the bat, right? If we're starting to get to know each other and I'm like, hey, what are you looking for? Oh, I'm looking for this, this, and this. These are some of the things that I went through, and this is essentially what I want moving forward. And then I'm doing the same thing. Number one, we're being intentional, which I would make the case most of the time we don't do anything intentional. We just kind of fall into stuff and we wonder why it don't work. But the other thing is that it's absolutely appropriate to set boundaries, particularly because of what I've been through. So for example, I've been in situations where a partner has not communicated well, and that has led to all these presuppositions and assumptions that have come into the case, and then we have no opportunity to actually remedy anything because that person has already drawn their own conclusions, right? I haven't talked about this on the show, but we know in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, we always talk about thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. When somebody's having this own internal conversation, right, and you're not allowed to be in a part of it, they literally are concocting an entire narrative of what is going to happen. Not what happened, what is going to happen. And then from there, they can change their feelings because now they believe that is actually going to happen. And then their behavior may be, now I'm going to be distant from you. Now I'm not going to communicate with you. And then ultimately the relationship cannot survive. But all of that is predicated on the fact that we are not talking about those issues. It all started from the fact that we don't communicate about it. So I talk about those things because that is a very firm boundary for me, because I know I can't tolerate that. I don't tolerate that from my son. I don't tolerate that from my clients. I don't tolerate that from anybody in my life. If you don't want to communicate, I'm not going to put any effort.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Because to me, that's basic human decency and respect. If you want something, you need to make sure you're trying to explain it in the best way possible. But we also need to make sure that we are being understood. Sometimes we just talk at somebody and we assume they got it. Well, no, we need to make sure, what did you just hear me say? And make sure they reflect back to you what you were trying to get them to understand. Yeah. Otherwise, they're operating on their own guess of whatever you were trying to mean. And you might get hurt and you might get frustrated again. Like, why doesn't he get it? Because he didn't understand when you said it.
And some people think they're good listeners when they're not.
True.
And I'm one of them. Because
I appreciate the transparency.
And it's interesting too, because you mentioned expectations, and like I think expectations it's a really interesting topic because what I expect of a partner may be different than what you expect out of a partner, and that's where communication plays in.
Yes, ma'am.
But like, I was in a recent situation where I would hear a person that I was dating say, I'm not ready for a relationship. I'm not ready for a relationship. In my head, I said, yet. You're not ready for a relationship yet.
And then you drew the conclusion of what?
And then after months of dating this person, I was like, oh wait, I think he really means it. And I had to be the one to say, I'm sorry, because I wasn't really listening to you. Like, you told me in every way what you wanted, and I just went along with it because I genuinely thought, of course you're gonna change your mind.
But that's really honest of you to admit that.
Yeah,
Not a lot of people sit there
I
and
respect
admit
you
that,
a lot.
that was on me, and I realized I have that issue. I like to hear what I want to hear.
Listen,
Doesn't everybody?
A lot of people do. A lot of people do. We hear
yeah.
one thing and we're like, I'm going to twist this into something that I can use.
Because I'm an optimist, so when you say, "Oh, this can't work," I'll be like, "For now."
Right. See, I'm glad you used that word. I consider myself an optimistic realist. So I like to make sure I have hope always for the future, right? Or hoping people to change. If I didn't, I shouldn't be a therapist, right? Yeah. But I also know that it's based on where people are at today. Mm-hmm. So if somebody tells me I'm not ready, I'm not trying to convince them otherwise. I'm like, okay, heard. And I want them to take their time to do whatever they need to do to get ready. Yeah. As opposed to me thinking I'm going to convince them that they need to get ready because they need to go through whatever in life they're going through. And this is just also just things from I've learned through working. Sometimes people have to fall into worse situations before they wake up.
Yes.
Unfortunately. And I don't say that because I like that. To be clear, I do not. And men in particular.
Yeah.
We do that, but that's because again we don't have the language, so we just kind of like keep running into the wall over and over again. But we find ourselves in situations where we put ourselves over and over again in these repetitive cycles that don't give us the outcomes that we want. And as much as you being the other person or me being the other person can be like, if you just maybe change that, I think it'd get better. But they got to see that.
Yeah.
They got to know that is not only possible, but it's something that they desire. Otherwise, going back to expectations, I'm now projecting my expectations onto you, and I need you to honor those. But you didn't agree to that.
Exactly.
So now what am I doing? I'm inviting disappointment.
Yeah, it's like you kind of set them up to fail.
Facts.
And maybe that's what you wanted.
Could be.
Or in the sense of like you believed perhaps this was even going to work out anyways.
I've heard situations where some people do that because it's a
core belief.
I was gonna say it's like, it can be like a half-hearted attempt to like connect with somebody. Like
that's a good way to put it. I tried.
But I tried with somebody who was emotionally unavailable. So was I really trying?
No.
Because if I'm trying with somebody who's not available, then I'm actually just allowing myself to still remain guarded. So I'm actually still protecting myself.
Yeah.
Which defeats the whole point of learning to be vulnerable.
Yeah, you can't be vulnerable with someone who doesn't want to be vulnerable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So there's like all those, like you said, core beliefs or just lived experiences that, shape the way that we see things.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're right. I absolutely believe we set ourselves up sometimes to be frustrated and disappointed because sometimes we don't listen or sometimes we are not speaking about the things that we actually need. And then when you put it out there, especially like in dating, right? And you put it out there, if that person shows you and tells you that they can't give you what you need, to your point, I need to walk away. Because again, I'm setting myself up to be disappointed versus if there's 10 guys in here and we filter through them and you put your expectations out there and 2 of them match them, I shouldn't be entertaining the other 8 because I'm wasting my time. They already made it clear they can't give me what I want. I need to invest in you 2 and let's see which one I really match with. Right? So the pool is smaller, but I'm increasing the probability it's going to work.
Yeah. And when they don't work out, you just go back to the other 8 and it's fine.
I mean,
no, don't do that. It's actually really bad advice.
What, we're gonna go back to them and try to convince? Like,
no,
hey,
don't.
Like you didn't really
you
mean
weren't
that.
You didn't mean that, right? Yeah, we go back.
You really want love. Come on.